Greetings to everyone. Thank you for the UCMC for the opportunity to have this briefing. The briefing is dedicated to tariffs for electricity for population and possibility for the consumers to reduce the invoice. Today is the 1st of March and today is the fifth stage of balancing the prices for electricity for population. Before I move to explanation what's happening at the fifth stage, I would like to start from the history. I would like to remind you, 2 years ago, what was this decision related to? It was connected to coalition agreement signed by the factions of the parliament. There's a separate section which is called Reform of Electricity Sector and Energy Dependence. And the task was to do stage-by-stage balancing of prices for natural gas and electricity. If you look more attentively at that, it provided for full cancelling of multi-tariff system which existed in electricity sector and natural gas. According to that, there was a moratorium on any blackouts for some sectors, disconnections for some businesses, as the strategic document, the coalition agreement provided for all the tariffs to be without cross-subsidizing. As the way of implementation, the agreement provided for that during 2016 and 17 there will be several stages. Stage by stage, the prices will be leveled for all categories of consumers. At the same time, there would be a switch to target subsidies for consumers, so that the subsidies go in targeted way to those who need such an assistance. In February 2015, the National Commission passed a decision almost 2 years ago on 5 stages of leveling up the prices for electricity for population, besides the special tariffs which existed for some sectors. Traffic were cancelled. And now in more detail about the fifth stage, the effective tariffs which were approved. If you look at the slide, you will see level tariffs which are in place from the 1st of March, which are from the 1st of March. The first block has a reduced price at the level of 90 kopecks with the VAT for the first 100 kilowatt, and the second one, which is 86 kopecks for with the VAT for consuming more than 100 kilowatt hours per month. 40% of consumers consume up to 100 kilowatt hours per month. For them, there is a privileged price preserved, which is only 54% of the price of the second block. And for such consumers, the change of monthly invoice is 18 hryvnias. For those who consume 50 kilowatt, and that's 15% of all the consumers, the change of monthly invoice is 9 hryvnias. For those who consume 150 kilowatt a month, and that is approximately 60% of consumers, the change of monthly invoice is 38 hryvnias. Basically, we can say that for the most of the population, the change of monthly invoice is from 9 to 38 hryvnias. If you compare the fifth stage, the second block, with the tariffs in other European countries, we can see that existing tariffs for electricity for population, even in the second block, which is 168 kopecks, is 3.5 times lower than the average European level, which is almost 6 hryvnias.
Найвищий
The highest data, that's 8 hryvnia 80 kopecks, and the lowest in Europe is Bulgaria, 2 hryvnia 74 kopecks, which is 1 hryvnia more Then our second block for consumers who consume more than 100 kilowatt hours a month. Parallel to that, the Commission made other steps to protect the consumers. I will talk about three main ones which concern the consumers. The access to the accounting zone accounting of electricity was simplified. The putting the zone meter allows the consumer to reduce the invoice, because at night they have the discount of 50%, and all the equipment that consumes a lot of electricity could be turned on at night. And now 400,000 Ukrainians are using that. Only in 2016, such meters were installed by 160,000 people. Most of them, that's in Dnipropetrovsk region, 5% of all subscribers have such meters. Big number of consumers are consuming up to 100 kilowatt, and but usually such meters are worth installing for those who consume more. In Dnipropetrovsk region, 1/4 of the consumers who are target audience installed such equipment. Also, the government simplifies the way of receiving zone meters. People could buy such a meter individually, and also the clear parameterization was set. After such changes, the rate of putting multi-zone meter grew up. And basically the consumers will be able to save quite easily. Secondly, we introduced compensation for bad quality services of electricity supply. What it means? Annually, about 500,000 consumers come to Obelenерgo on the services which are standardized, and the standard includes the term during which the service is to be provided.
In order to allow the customer to get compensation, we had to determine how the customers can get the compensation in monetary form for non-delivery of the services. We have established these standards till the mid of this year and up to 2018. The customer may get up to 1,000 hryvnia during the months coming next after non-delivered services. And this is taken as an advanced payment for the next period. If the services are not delivered, if the compensation is not delivered on time, then it could be postponed and enlarged for the next, as advance payment for the next period. Then we, as a State Commission, we submitted, and the Parliament had passed the law about information, about delivery of information about tariffs to population. And the law provides that we will produce comparative analysis of all the energy delivery services provided to population and publicize that papers and reports. In line with this law, all our work sessions of the Commission are available on stream and online for people. All the protocols are published on our website within 3 months after after each meeting. Then from December 2016, an archive of all our video archive of all our sessions is available for us. All the raises in tariffs are accompanied by special presentations explaining each raise in tariffs is available from website. Also, in order to present the structure of tariff calculation, we produced detailed overview of all the tariffs of all groups of consumers in Ukraine, and by the end of April, all the customers will get reports from the energy providers about structure of tariffs, about and comparative analysis of the consumption of each household against the level of consumption in the house, in the oblast, city, etc. About cross-subsidizing. From the change of power before the change of power in Ukraine, the amount of cross subsidies amounted to $5 billion annually. After the start in reforms since 2014, due to the drop of electricity tariff in dollars and due to the proper regulation, the amount of cross subsidies as of today is 3 times lower and equal to $1.4 billion approximately. Now, about tariffs, which, and I would like to mention factors which considerably influence the tariffs. First of all, the currency exchange rate. When the decision was made, the exchange course was 17 hryvnia per $1, while in 2015 the exchange rate was 22 hryvnia for $1. As of today, the exchange rate is 27 hryvnia for $1, which means that there is 60% raise. In the tariff or NPPs, nuclear power plants, the 60% of tariff, electricity tariff is tied to $1 in heating power electric power plants. More than 60% of tariff of energy price is tied to currency because of the imported coal, and today we up to $300 million $300,000 million are part of tariffs. Also, the inflation is another factor which influences the tariffs. In 2015, the inflation was 43%, while in 2016 it was 12%, and for the current year it will be around 8%. And also the balancing in electric generation. Due to balancing, the tariffs may change because when we balance energy, we waste it. And this also influences tariffs. Now the questions about the future tariffs for population, whether you plan to remove 21%. As of today, there are no new decisions about new tariffs for populations. Today's briefing was intended to explain the fifth stage in tariff reforming, and 40% of customers will see their bills raised by 18 hryvnia per month. And once again, looking at the European countries, which we take as a target in our regulation, our tariffs for population are much lower, but it does not mean that we wish to raise our tariffs similarly. Maybe household consumers are interested to know how do you spend the money raised due to tariffs. And as far as I understand, the heating generation tariff is a bit higher than it should be. Can you mention the price of a generation? The decision that I described, that I commented today, was made in February 2015. As for generation, energy generation that you mentioned, and tariffs for each generation were approved in December 2016. You can find the session in our video archive on our website. I'm representing Ukraine TV channel. Recently, Ministry of Energy mentioned that they are going to change coal price formula in order not to take into account 12 months, but to calculate the price for 1 quarter due to the price of imported anthracite fuels. Whether Energy Regulation Commission is aware of these changes, and how this may change the tariff. The Ministry of Energy about the Ministry of Energy's plan to change the formula of pricing was not communicated to us. As to the change in tariff, unfortunately, recent events in Donbass siege, etc. Probably this will not allow us to review the further decrease in ORC.
Basically, the price went down by 10%, and it would be logical to think that this will somehow affect the tariffs, that the market price also went down by 10%. Or do you think of how to survive through it? From the 1st of January, it was reduced by 10%. The tariffs for first and second class were reduced now. For first and second class, they are 1 hryvnia 50 kopecks without VAT, which is 1 hryvnia 80. With VAT for first class. For second class, in average, the tariff is 2 hryvnia, which with the VAT is 2 hryvnia 40. If you compare with the tariffs for population, they are now 90 kopecks with VAT and hryvnia 68. The coalition, according to coalition agreement, the tariffs should be similar until in Ukraine the price of the first and second class is lower than the price for population. We cannot talk about possibility to reduce it for population. Vika Ilchenko, Dela UA. To continue the topic of industry and cross-subsidizing. If I understand it correctly, cross-subsidizing had to more economically make the tariffs for population and also reduce the burden for industry. I want to clarify whether the sum of subsidy certificates is reduced, which industrial categories pay more, which less. And as to generating companies, in March, you had to review the tariff for Energatom and Ukrenergo. You said that most probably this review will be delayed. Could you clarify that? 3 questions. The first, as to reduction of cross-subsidizing, we hear a lot of criticism from industry on non-competitive tariffs for electricity. I disagree with that because of 2 reasons. First reason, the tariffs of the first and second class in Ukraine are lower than in Europe. That is the fact. The second why I disagree, in 2013, if you look at the level of tariffs of the first and second class, it was approximately 10 cents. 10 cents for at this exchange rate is 2 hryvnia 80 kopecks. Today, the tariff of the first class is approximately 1 hryvnia 50, which is 5 cents, and for second class 2 hryvnias, which is approximately 7 cents. They reduced in dollar equivalent, and the percentage of cross-subsidizing also was reduced. Previously, the industry paid for population 30%. Now, this will be 20%. The second question was, again, now we don't have separate categories. Previously, mining or ferrous alloys plants had preferences, and electric transportation had preferences. In 2014, 2015, the government made the decision to eliminate these preferences, and the Commission made such a decision. The effect is smaller, but it was significant. These were millions hryvnias of additional subsidies. And one more question, and that's on the review of tariffs for generation. It was planned in March. I would like you to explain why it will move, and also next. The main thing is that all our consumers should understand the effect from the blockade will be negative. In the result of the blockade, the mining complex will be consuming less, and then there will be smaller share for Energoatom, and once we don't have any currency revenues, the biggest amount of tariffs will become higher. So we have to analyze all the factors, and maybe we will have to move minus 5% from 1st of April to later term. That affects industrial consumers. Kiev TV channel. We don't understand. You were talking about 5 stages of increase. Is this 5th stage the last one? Today there are no other decisions on change of tariffs. I today am explaining what is the 5th stage, so that you explain to the consumers what would be the effect from the 5th stage. The effect from the 5th stage is shown on this slide. For consumers 50 kilowatt 9 hryvnia, for the consumers of 100 kilowatt plus 18, and 150 kilowatt plus 38 hryvnia. At the same time, we are doing everything so that the consumers get high quality services. Last question, if you may. Union. The methodology.
Була розроблена НКРЄ. Чи не плануєте ви
Are you planning to review the structure of the formula of new methodology, because it was criticized highly by consumers and by Deloitte, who said that you are using the cost of Obelergo that was calculated by Deloitte, not for that. Thank you for your question, but this is not about today's briefing, but separately we will inform you about that. Can you reduce the price or the difference? And can we reduce this price back? If not, it's called Rotterdam Plus. What does it give to consumers? I want to emphasize that in the past there was no formula and there was no procedure for identifying, and the Commission has not received any written proposals from experts or authorities with the analysis of changes and the comprehensive effect on the electricity sector or state budget. And if there are any changes, we will inform you. Thank you. Thank you.